engage in meaningful dialogue, and collectively strive towards making this conclave a transformative and fruitful endeavor. The floor is yours, sir. Please, sir.
Former, former Member of Parliament, Srimati Rema Haridaji, she has introduced me as an MP, but I am not a Member of Parliament now. I was in the past. So I'm making this first clarification so everybody is aware of it. Colleagues on the dais, Dr. Sona PR, Mr. A.P. Anil Kumar, MLA, has already spoken over here. And the topic are two: constitutional rights and its irregularities amongst the Dalit. And below that, there is a subject of constitution in connection with the Dalits and Adivasi reservation. In the first place, we narrow our discussion only to what we are interested. We don't look at the larger picture, that's most important. We have narrowed it down to what the Constitution gives us by way of reservation. That's the only object which we have seen. But there are other aspects of the Constitution, I think so, which needs to be understood because they are the core to our being free and socially free. One is, I would say, Article 19. Till 1963, the article was in different form. In 1963, the article took a different form. The earlier article repossesses the unity of this country and bringing about social changes in the hands of the citizen. So the citizens were made the masters of this country. And since the citizens were masters of this country, every other instrument internally was secondary to the citizens. But in 1963, a fundamental change was brought about, and that fundamental change altered everything. What was the change that was brought about? Was no longer the freedom and sovereignty which was in the hands of the citizen were taken away and placed in the hands of the parliament. So the citizens became secondary to parliament. And when citizens became secondary to parliament, you find all discriminatory laws or the Dalits and Adivasis who were fighting for their natural rights. Who were fighting for their natural rights or constitutional rights, they had to face barriers. Barriers in the sense that the new laws gave the parliament, the new amendment, as I've said, to Article 19 in 1963, gave vast powers to the parliament to curtail the movements of the citizen. The concept which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar developed was that the citizen should be supreme and the elected members should be subject to them. If I have to speak in master-servant relation, the citizens were the masters and the elected members were the servant. By the 1963 amendment, the servant became the master and the master became the servant. That's one of the most fundamental changes that was brought about, and that fundamental changes led to many of the revocations laws which we see today being passed by every successive government. One of the duties of the Adivasi Dalit organizations was to protect their own rights and also that the members of the elected assemblies, parliament, were their servants and not their masters. Today what has happened is, if you see the plethora of laws that have come across, you can't agitate against your elected member. You can't agitate against the government. You can't oppose the government policies. You can't speak against the government policies. You have no right to do that. If I have to speak regarding the Adivasis, they have the 6th schedule, 5th and 6th schedule, which is a country within a country. The concept is, of the 5th and 6th schedule, concept is nation within a nation or a country within a country. Those areas that were declared as tribal areas, they were autonomous. The Legislative Assembly did not have the powers. The Parliament did not have the powers. They came directly under the rule of the President. And their assembly, or the autonomous body which was there, was answerable to the President and none else. And therefore today we find in the Adivasi area, there is a movement which is going on where they call that Jal, Jangal, Zameen. ये हमारी है, किसी के बाप की नहीं. Because the rights over these minerals, the right over the land and the right over the water is enshrined to the Adivasis under the 5th and 6th schedule. If we had properly advocated the line of thinking the Adivasis would have been much better off because they would have been the managers or controllers of their own land, own water, and the own minerals which was there. We left that opportunity. Since we left that opportunity, the government entered into the second phase. And that is 72, due to Indira Gandhi, we had the nationalization policy. But even in 1990, we had the privatization policy. As I've said, that we have become too narrow. And since we have become too narrow, we forgot one thing, that a draft constitution which was submitted by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, he suggested that a parliament should have the right to frame the policy and not the government. Because if you see the Act of 1951, Representation of People's Act 1950 and 51, which he drafted, he didn't make political party an inclusive part of the Act. Parliament was made independent. The members of Parliament were made independent. They were not made slaves of the political party. But in 89, the Congress party, which was in rule, introduced compulsory registration of political parties. And by registering compulsion political parties, the elected members became the slave of the political parties. What I'm hinting at is, in the earlier draft constitution, the economy of this country should be decided by the parliament and not by the political parties. And there he advocated what he pinned down in the states and minorities of dividing economy into three sectors. One is essential sector, which he said is the lifeline of the nation, which should be in the hands of the parliament. Second, he said the necessary sector, which should either be the state or which should be with the center. And the third, he said, is the auxiliary center, which should be with the private sector. Had we kept on harping on this aspect, the government wouldn't have dared in 1990 to introduce privatization. They would have resisted the World Bank offer of opening up the economy. The World Bank had asked for opening of the economy, not of disinvestment of the public sector. You said you open up your economy, then only we will finance you, because we had defaulted on the external balance of payment. And therefore, since we had defaulted, we had no option then to approach the IMF, international banks, for a loan. And there came the situation where the Indian economy was opened. Not only Indian economy was opened, but the public sector was sold left, right, and center. Who lost, I would say? No doubt the national exchequer lost, but immediate even taking into the narrow-minded that we have fit into ourselves, the SCs and STs lost the government opportunity of becoming a financial viable family unit. We have to open up and look in a different sense. And when I had a first meeting with all the MPs, because in 90 I was there in Parliament, and when I had a first meeting with all these scheduled caste MPs, for the first meeting everybody attended, but the next meeting I was the only person who was left there. And therefore I said that 89, by the amendment in the Representation of People's Act, the elected members became the slaves of the political parties. But they followed the dictate of the political party, sacrificing the benefits of the community through which they have won. Who lost in between? It's the SC and ST who lost. And therefore, we have to be very vigilant as far as the rest of the rights are concerned. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar left us with one responsibility, and where he said that I have bought this cart up to here. It's your duty to see that the cart doesn't go down. Question which everybody has to now answer himself is whether the cart is there or it has started declining. And if it has started declining, who's responsible for it? Are the political parties responsible for it, or we as an educated are responsible for it? My only answer that we fail the coming generation in protecting them and giving them an environment in which we enjoyed our freedom. Therefore, the blame lies on us. Because when I spoke of this, I said today we have a very good opportunity of saving the public sector. No doubt we defaulted in end of 1989-90, when Chandrasekhar was the Prime Minister. I said this is one of the best opportunities we have to save the public sector. Even though we defaulted, there was no run on the economy. No demand was made on the economy that no, you have defaulted, you should pay. Or whatever guarantees you have given, we will encash those guarantees. That run was not there only for a simple reason that even if the government decided to sell one of the public sector and repay the defaulted amount, they still would have balance left. Only one company. That is the strength of the Indian economy. Or that was the strength, I would say, of the Indian economy. But we, instead of being alert, we not only became lazy, but we accepted that now nothing is going to happen. Complicity spread into the system and into the minds. And we said that nothing is going to happen. But those who were against your development, there is a class which is alive, and which Dr. Ambedkar himself said it, that when Kranti moves, that revolution moves, along with that revolution you have the counter-revolution also. It's always a tussle between the revolutionaries and the counter-revolutionaries. If the revolutionaries are ahead, they remain ahead. As I've said, if they lag down, they go behind and the counter-revolutionaries come up. Privatization is a move of the counter-revolutionaries. For a reason that those who did not have the means of livelihood, because they didn't have the land, nor they had any properties, which they could encash. So service became their source of revenue. In 1980s, I had worked out a figure for one of the states in which the state would spend nearly about 35,000 crores annually on the salary. Out of this 35,000 crores, 14,000 crores were spent on salaries for SC and ST. 14,000 crores were spent on salaries for SC and ST. That means the SC and ST became the owner of 14,000 crores out of 35,000 crores. And due to this transfer of treasury funds by way of employment, the Dalit and the Adivasis captured what you call today, which I call it in my terms, is the purchasing power. Being have-nots, their first priority in life became of purchasing whatever would give them happiness. So they became the purchasers in the market. And as they became purchasers in the market, they started controlling the market forces. Today, situation is changing in a different manner. What we have to understand today, socially we have come up in life. Socially we have achieved. If you want to achieve other things in life, you have to first stabilize yourself economically. If you don't stabilize yourself economically, whatever social gains you have gained will come down if you become economically weak. The moment you are a dictating class in the economy, you can always come to a second stage. But the moment you are not a dictating class in the economy, you don't come to a dictating stage. Today is a world where economy plays a major part in life. Social issues do play a life. I do agree to it. But I asked you a simple question. What is left to achieve socially? I'm asking him, ask this August House. Do we have any issues left? Atrocity, yes, they have been there. But what are the other issues? Socially, you have come to a strata. You have achieved a strata. Socially, what is left is dictating the society as such. Now, if you have to dictate the society, you have to dictate the market first, and which the class would say, I would say that credit goes to Madam Indira Gandhi, because she went in 1972 for a mass banking nationalization and socialization of health, agriculture, facilities where employment was generated. And that is where I said transfer of resources to the tune of 30-35% from the actual budget on salaries were with the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Is that status today? No. You have lost, you're losing, I'll say lost, I won't say lost, but I would say you're losing the market control. You're sliding down the ladder only because you can't dictate the market. And now if you have to reverse this, it has to be again socio-economy agenda. Not just socio-economy agenda, but along with that socio-economy agenda, you will have to add the religious agenda also. And when you raise the religious agenda, as I've said, you have to come back to the idea of nation. What is that nation you want? Your concept of nation has to be placed now. And whichever whom it conflicts, you have to go head along with it. Why for last 10-15 years the left and the Congress is failing? Because it has become a copycat of the Sanatani organizations. Here lies the real strength of the Dalits and the Adivasis. It is here the destiny has to be put across. And that destiny has to be the new agenda, as I've said. Capitalize on the new agenda and place that agenda before it. You take every country in the world today is going back and saying that my country is first. After serving my country, I will serve the rest of the world. The same theory, same principle we have to accept, that we are first and the rest are others. Now, where does our interest lie? I will take the case of the Adivasis. Because natural resources, it's like, you can say internationally, crude oil and its product are utilized by the Europeans. 80% of the crude oil is in the Muslim countries. So the Europe and others have become dependent on the Muslims, and the Muslims have depended on the Europe for refineries, technology. The same is the case with the Adivasis. The area which is declared as Adivasi area has all the minerals. Has all the minerals. But they don't have the technology to mine it. Now that technology is available outside the Adivasi areas. A simple formula that if you want to mine it in my area. If you want to manufacture it, you manufacture it in my area. I will not allow the raw material to move out of my area. The development of the raw material which is there is the first. Similarly, the Adivasis and Dalits will have to take a stand. That we are no longer going to be foot soldiers. Development of our area is must. And our area of development is education first. Our development of area is that whatever funds are earmarked to us is divided in social sector and economic center. And the third part, as I've said, is the religious one. The Dalit Ambedkarite would have to take the Sanatani organization head along. The Vedic, I divide Hindu religion into two parts. One is Vedic Hindu religion, and the other is the Saint Hindu religion. The Vedic Hindu religion believes in the caste system, and the Sant do not believe in the caste system. We have to openly come out. And therefore I've said that we have to lay the agenda. Let the rest of the people decide which side they are. A time has come where either there is chaos in this country or there is rule of law in this country. If the Dalit and Adivasis do not take up any of these stands, let me tell you, we are heading for chaos in this country. And the Holocaust that will be unleashed will be affecting your lives also. Because the Holocaust is a religious Holocaust. It's a tolerance that is at stake. Religious tolerance is at stake. And once religious tolerance becomes imbalanced, then as I say, in the 90s it happened when the world was uni-world. Culture became the Kavach Kundal of each distinct society in the world. They fell back on their culture, and culture became their shield. Today, what we are seeing is religion is becoming the shield. If this religion becomes the shield, there is no brotherhood that is left. There is no understanding that is left. There is only, I would say, hatred that is left. And hatred can lead to anywhere. And therefore, I would say that the Dalit Adivasis are at a crossroad. You can't shrink your responsibilities. Till yesterday, yes, you were shrinking your response, saying that, no, I don't need to take stand. I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to be the beneficiary of whatever is being granted. Let me tell you, beneficiaries are being taken away. And within the next 10 years, these beneficiaries will also not remain. Because you have been inaction in defending what you want, in saying what you want to do. Your inaction is going to lead to your downfall. And therefore, I would thank the organizers for opening up a topic which is most important. Because unless these safeguards are there, you can't safeguard yourself. But once these safeguards are taken away or they are replaced, you can't save yourself, then your whole energy becomes to develop new safeguards. And unless and until you develop new safeguards, you can't be the beneficiaries of those new safeguards. This is a system which has been an oppressive system right for 2000 years. The nation was not cared for. It was caste and religion that was cared for. Whoever may have ruled. That didn't bother the Sanatanis. What bothered them was most is that the Sanatanis' philosophy and way of life should not be disturbed. Therefore, the Sanatanis are in direct conflict with the nation. And if you want to fight them, you have to build your theory of nationhood. And that is confrontation. Common man understands things much better by confrontation rather than by explaining. Therefore, confrontation is one way of educating the common man. I hope I have placed enough material before you. Kerala is one state where the education level is very, very high. And not only that, but there are large number of individual thinkers and scholars also who keep on sending many things and writing many things. I hope you will think in this direction. I thank the organizers and as well as your kind self for patiently hearing to my enslavement of yours for 45 minutes. Thank you.